Myrna Carter Jackson for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Oral History Project by Benny Miles at Miles College on November 3rd, 1995 at 1 p.m. Mrs. Jackson, what part of the state are your parents from?
Montgomery.
Both of them from Montgomery?
Yes, one is from Montgomery. My father is from Snowden, which is below Montgomery.
Snowden,
Alabama.
Okay. Have you ever been to Snowden?
Yes, I have. We had a family reunion there about 25 years ago. That's the only time I've really been to Snowden.
Okay. Were you born in Birmingham?
I was born in Birmingham, yes.
Okay. Where in Birmingham were you born? What hospital? Were you born at home? Or
Well,
what?
At that time, we were born at home.
Really?
Dr. Gibson, a well-known black doctor who I think delivered everybody during that time, was born at my grandmother's home on 13th Avenue North in East Birmingham.
Okay, well, that's great. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, it's 8 of us.
8?
8. Yes, it is.
Were all of you born at home?
No, the last 3 were born in the hospital.
Okay.
They are younger than we are.
So
we have an older set of sisters and brothers and a younger set.
Okay. So do they tease you about them being born in the hospital and you being born at home?
Not really. They don't. They really don't.
Okay. How many are older and how many are younger?
I have 2 brothers and a sister who's older than I am.
Okay. What about education, your parents? Were they educated people?
Yes, my mother graduated from Industrial High School in 1932. And as far as I can remember, my mother is the only graduate out of all of her sisters and brothers. But she was brought here from Montgomery at age 2 by my real grandmother's sister.
Okay.
And she raised her. So she was educated here in the city of Birmingham at Industrial High School. My dad attended Industrial High School as well, but he did not graduate. He went to night school there and pursued shoe repair. He opened his own business.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
When you say industrial high school, is that what, Parker High School?
That's what Parker High School used to be,
Okay.
Industrial High School.
So your dad opened up a business. That was my next question. What were their occupations? Where was your dad's shoe repair shop?
Yes, it was W.G. Carter and Sons Shoe Repair. In fact, my dad used to sponsor a gospel program on Sunday mornings on, I believe it was WJLD years ago.
How nice. Okay, sponsored by Jackson and Sons Shoe Repair.
No, W.G. Carter
Carter,
and
I'm
Sons.
sorry.
W.G. Carter and Sons. But strangely enough, my brothers were not interested in the shoe repair business. My sister was very, very interested. In fact, she had her own shoe shine stand in front of the shoe shop, and she could have sold shoes and things just as well as my dad.
So women were doing a lot of things even then.
You're right.
What about your mom? What was her occupation?
My mother did not work, thank God. My mother was home with us, and we were used to getting up every morning to homemade biscuits and full breakfast. She was there when we got home in the evening, and we were blessed not to have a working mother at that time.
Well, she worked all right. She
Yes,
just worked
she
at home.
did. She did.
She did everything.
Right.
What about education for you? How much formal education do you have?
Unfortunately, I attended Lawson State after about 15 years out of high school. And at the time, I was trying to raise a family and work and go to school, so it didn't work out. So I just had about a year and a half at Lawson State.
But you finished high school?
Yes, I did. I finished at Parker High School. In fact, I finished in 1958. I finished at age 16. I was very proud. Well, during the time I was in school, if you knew the least amount, the schools were overcrowded, so you automatically what we call skipped. So I was skipped twice while attending elementary school, Alberta Shields School. And at the time of graduation, I happened to be 16 when I finished high school. So
you had to have been very smart, too.
Yes.
In order to get out of that. What about your occupation? What is it?
I'm a sales consultant at Parisians in River Chase.
Okay. And how long have you been in that business?
I have been in retail business about 27 or 28 years.
What about your community? Where did you live when you were growing up, and how would you describe your particular community, like the racial mix? Was it an all-black or mixed white, other cultures about your community?
Now, I was born and raised in East Birmingham. It's a couple of blocks from Stockham Vale. In that community, 12th Avenue separated the white community from the black community. Black community started in what we called Greenwood. It was a community on the other side of Village Creek. And when you were on the south side of Village Creek, it was called East Birmingham. Well, East Birmingham extended to 12th Avenue. And at 12th Avenue to 10th Avenue was the white community. And the whites lived across the street, but there was no direct contact per se, no socializing. They just happened to live across the street.
Okay, so not even with the children or the kids played together. And I would imagine during that time, youngsters didn't go to schools together, different cultures.
No, we did not. Now, there was a particular family who ran a grocery store on the corner, and their children naturally played with the children in the community. They didn't really have a choice because their store was there, and the blacks patronized that store.
When you talk about communities where you live, you were talking about, what about the occupations? What kind of occupations do people have, and what kind of things that you all do for recreation, and maybe even some of the organizations that evolved or that was in that community?
We had a very, very safe community. In fact, the people in our community were close-knit. If you had a problem, then it was the neighborhood's problem. Everybody in that community always came to your rescue. Now, we had the type of entertainment or whatever we had was we would play games, and by not having parks at that time for blacks, we played ball in the street, and the people recognized the fact that we did not have a ballpark, so they allowed that, and we played hide and go seek and the like with the parents sitting on the front porch, and it was a real safe environment.
What other recreational things that people do in your community? I mean, did they visit each other? Did the guys play checkers or?
That was checkers.
Go to movies or?
Yeah, that was checkers, and there was always baseball. You know, Stockham, we had a Negro League at the time, and Stockham had a baseball field that was not too far from our home, and that was a gathering place for our baseball. That was always a crowd draw.
What about occupations of the people in your community? What did they do? Was it like teachers or domestic workers? What?
We had a mixture in our neighborhood. We had teachers, we had principals, we had most of the men worked in steel plants. Connor Steel, Stockham, Mississippi Coal, those were common places, McWayne, those were the places that the men in our community worked, and they usually walked to work because it was right in their community. The ladies, we had quite a few nurses in our neighborhood, quite a few, and we had domestic workers as well, and then we had the housewives.
Okay. What was your community's relationship to the police department, the Birmingham Police Department? I mean, did they come around in that area? Were they friendly, or were there things going on if there were organizations that met, or what kind of relationship?
Well, now, I had a very, very bad experience with the police department when I was young. In fact, I had two. One was when my brother was involved, his wife rather was involved with a situation at her home, and the police came. And my brother is very, very outspoken, so he spoke up for his wife, and they in turn put him in the paddy wagon and was taking him away, and my dad decided he would trail them, and they carried him toward the airport. And when they got a certain distance, they stopped the paddy wagon and got out and went back to my dad's car and asked him why was he following them, and he said, "You have my son in there." He said, "Well, so what? He said, "Well, you told me you were taking him to jail, but you're not going to jail." And that was a blessing because my dad was outspoken at that point, because they could have taken my dad and my brother as well, but that was a very, very bad experience I had. And then the night that my mother passed, by it being 8 children, and my mother had very young children, the family was very, very torn, and the neighbors, as I said earlier, came to our rescue, and it was quite a crowd in front of our house. And the policeman came up and found out what was going on, and he told them, okay, the show is over, you all can go now. And that was a terrible experience to me, and I've never forgotten it.
Mm-hmm. Because do you think that they thought there was some type of, another type of gathering?
No.
Or it didn't matter to them?
No, they asked. They actually came up and asked what was going on, and it was explained that there was death inside, that my mother passed at home.
What about community organizations? Were you a member of any community groups? And if so, what were they? Or did you hold an office?
I've been a member of the NAACP ever since I was about 15 years old. And at that time, the NAACP was broken up into communities. Today we have a mixture. I believe our organization is called Metro Birmingham NAACP, which takes up a large portion of the city of Birmingham, whereas back then it was divided by community.
Okay. Did you get involved with the NAACP early on because of your mom or your dad or school, or what? How did you get involved with them at such a young age, 15?
I think that I've always loved people. I'm a people person, and I've always thought of being there when someone was in need, and I saw the opportunity to work with an organization that would help our people. My grandmother, by the way, who lived to be over 100, was very, very outspoken, and I was encouraged by her bravery, I would say, in that time and at her age. She was very, very outspoken as far as our people are concerned, and she taught us certain things that was very, very dear to us, that encouraged me to really seek to do something to help our people rather than talk.
Okay. Were there any other groups or organizations that you were a member of other than the NAACP? And if so, did you hold an office in the NAACP and any other group at that time?
I was secretary of the East Birmingham branch, NAACP. Other than that, I was a member of the church, 45th Street Baptist Church. I've been a member there all of my life.
Okay.
But other than that, those are the only two organizations.
Well, how did you get involved with the civil rights movement, or even how did you, how and why?
Well, during that time, again, I'd say certain things caused me to really, really get excited. And I think when the movement first started, it was very, very quiet and low-keyed, I would say. And the Birmingham Christian Movement for Human Rights was organized, and that's when Reverend Shuttlesworth had organized this group. And things were beginning to what we call be involved just locally. Certain people would go to the meetings, and yet they would make plans, and they would talk, and they would sing, and all. And when the need, I believe when Reverend Shuttlesworth was attacked at Phillips High School,